Video games have always had a tough time being viewed as art. I know how cliche this sounds, but do stick with me. Out of the four major forms of entertainment, movies, music, and literature being the others, video games have often been seen as nothing more than a plaything for little Timmy, something that is meant to be consumed with little to zero thought about how they potentially parallel true struggles of daily life. Thankfully, that perception of video games has faded away as smart, innovative, and thought-provoking titles have been released over its relatively short 50-year history. As more facets of the different entertainment industries try to slowly creep their way into video games, it's important that we continue to recognize the true innovators in the space. The large developers that are still willing to take big risks and make something truly unique, even under the eyes of publishers trying to maximize profits first and making a splash second. As well as the little guys, making their games on shoestring budgets, the ones that are not beholden to massive publishers, and willing to put their hearts and souls into making their vision a reality. That's why I'm discussing this game in particular, something that feels wholly unique, something that plays with your mind in some crazy ways. It truly made me the most confused I have ever felt playing a video game. I'm all for something experimental, and with my love of games like Killer 7, this was right up my alley. While it started alien, this vomit-covered world would soon feel quite homely, even though this might be one of the most hostile worlds I have ever experienced in a game. Of course, I'm talking about... By the way, if you didn't take that epilepsy warning at the beginning seriously, then I guess you only have yourself to blame. Sorry for the series opening, guys. I just needed to set the scene for one of the most batshit insane games I have ever experienced. And judging by the reviews for Cruelty Squad, I'd say that the vast majority of people agree with me. I really do think that this is what video games were made for. A way to express whatever the fuck you want, within legality of course. Whether it's critiques of late-stage capitalism, wet working operations, or your obsession with collecting worthless pieces of plastic. Like, come on guy, it's starting to look like a cave in here. It's so dank and moist. I guess it's time to put you out of your complacency and into a more introspective thought process. There's nothing that can't be taken the piss out of. Sorry, I went a little British there. Or at least that's what you all told me. There's not many different ways that I can say that Cruelty Squad is like nothing I've played before, without showing you something from the game. So let's have a look at the first thing you see about it. The Steam page. The first video game with the entire cycle of abuse included. Milsim Dev. I've never heard of Milsim Dev, but I'm sure they're good for their word. Another warning for epilepsy, well warranted. Highly kinetic tactical gameplay using varied weapons, such as the Fillet shotgun, silenced 10mm pistol, radiation emitter, dart gun, corrosive gas launcher, and more. By the time I'm reading this part of the script, I've only played around 2 hours, because that's as long as I could take without vomiting everywhere. So I haven't experienced these weapons, but I'm sure I'll get to them eventually. No hand-holding. Yep, this game is pretty difficult. Revisit earlier missions and try to beat your best time. Can you S-rank all the missions? No. And last but certainly not least, punishment mode. I'm too scared to checkmark that in the main menu, so punishment mode will forever go unticked. Now that we've glanced at the Steam page, let's look at the title screen, and either your eyes will start to melt out of their sockets, or your mind will start to acclimate to the corporate mindset. If it's the former, I'd go see a doctor. If it's the latter, then let's continue into the mindfuck, shall we? I will now dissect the main menu for you. Thanks to my advanced CEO mindset, we will take this slow, as diving in headfirst can have unforeseen consequences. First, I will explain the equipment menu. Here, you can purchase equipment to help you prolong your meaningless existence. Just remember that if you do die, it doesn't matter, because we can just regenerate your body and mind. At a cost, of course. You have the speed organs that do what they sound like they do, the multiple armors that grant better protection at the cost of speed and jumping ability, the only implant that truly matters, the extravagant suit that offers nothing except truly immersing yourself in the CEO lifestyle, some grenades, some miscellaneous shit that doesn't matter, the movement upgrades that actually matter, and the hidden equipment that you can find in levels that I'll get to momentarily. Then there's the stock market, where you can buy and sell stocks in corporations that you'll never use, body parts that you can harvest from dead bodies, and fish. Who knew that the guppy market was on the up and up? While you do earn money from completing missions, this is how you're going to really earn the big bucks. And you might be asking yourself, why is there a stock market for body parts like hearts, brains, and kidneys? Well, you're only asking those questions because the CEO mindset has not yet taken hold. And if you keep asking these dumbass questions, just know that it's not going to end very well for you. There's actually quite a lot going on with the stock market, like the prices of certain organs and fish rising and lowering as you acquire them during missions. It's not a static price that changes at random as you finish more missions. It reacts to how you play the game and how you change the world around you through your actions, and that's pretty cool. Moving on, there is a weapon 1 slot and a weapon 2 slot where you can choose your starting weapons. Any weapon that you finish a mission with gets unlocked for you to use as your starting weapon. It's important to know that all of these weapons have limited ammo, and sometimes you won't be able to get any more because no enemies in the mission are rocking those weapons. So while you can bring in a badass weapon with you, it's not always the best option because of that limited ammo conundrum. Of course, that may not be an issue if you have the ammunition gland, which lets you regenerate ammo, and the armor that lets you hold more ammo. It all comes down to what equipment you equipped and the weapons that you take into missions that massively affect how they will play out. Many of the missions have multiple paths to take out the target, as well as secrets piled on top of other secrets, piled on top of even more secrets. Now let's talk about those missions. You receive your briefing from this lovely thing known as the Handler. I don't know if that's his official name, but everywhere I looked up just called him that, so that's what I'm going with. You play as a soulless killing machine that doesn't care and will kill anybody for money. I don't think your main character has any sort of moral dilemma or any genuine thought. He is purely a vessel to experience the surreal missions. Would it have been cool if your character was an actual character? Yeah, but it works well as a juxtaposition between the stoicism of the main character and the wacky dialogue that the NPCs have. It'll never not be funny to me to walk up to some guy with a gun pointed straight at him and he's like, "What's up, my dude?" It's actually pretty telling how many of the NPCs react to your presence with such nonchalance that this is just what their world is like. You're usually sent to assassinate someone or group of people who fucked up under the eye of the corporate overlords at some capitalist organization for the wet works company Cruelty Squad. Whether that's someone who wants revenge on someone that made a tiny mistake, or maybe they used company money to buy a shitload of Chunko Pops. While the missions start out in a semi-comedic tone, it doesn't take long for it to divulge into absolute depravity. No matter the circumstance, the objective stays the same: kill the targets and return to the exit, all while killing any guards that try to get in your way. Not to mention all the mechanical and biological freaks you run into, including this lady with knives, this dude that makes the camera go all whack and makes you fire your weapon without actually doing anything, this flower monster thing, and this absolute unit rocking dual light machine guns. While a lot of the special enemies might seem imposing, nothing's quite as deadly than a normal guard with a machine gun. This game bills itself as a, quote, immersive power fantasy simulator, but I don't really know about that when you die as quickly as you do. I mean, just look at this clip. This man drains my health all the way down from max in less than 2 seconds. It's ultra important that you take your time while scouting out levels, cause who knows when some random enemy will pop up from behind a corner and kill you instantly. This is not a horror game, but it can be pretty unsettling with its bizarre visuals and obscene scenarios. Speaking of those scenarios, how about we go through the missions? For real this time. Our task for the first level is to kill Sigmund and Jerry. Alright, let's just hit start mission, and not only is the game not in the correct resolution for OBS, the game crashed as soon as I tried to start the first level. Truly, we are off to a fantastic start. Now that we're actually in the first level, the first thing you will notice is the controls. WASD to move, pretty standard. Q and E to lean left and right. R to interact with objects. Now we're getting a bit weird. Shift to aim down sights, while X is crouch and V changes weapons. F and G both throw whatever you're holding and your weapons, respectively. The game tries to cram as many functions as possible, and it makes my fingers turn into pretzels trying to do something quickly. All of this can take some time to get used to, but after a while it starts to become second nature. One thing that will never feel good though is your tertiary weapon being the 3 key. Pressing the 3 key might be okay if you're using something like grenades, But when you have the appendix, a grappling hook that serves as an important movement upgrade that changes the entire dynamics of combat, nope, not doing it. The missions are very labyrinthine in their structures, usually allowing for many different routes to find and eliminate the target. That's not with the occasional exception, which I will get to. Trust me, we will get to those levels. Most allow for the player to approach with a stealthier playstyle if the equipment you bring is best suited for it. Or you can go all guns akimbo, just make sure you got the guns, armor, and aim to back it up. What may seem like a mess of ultra colorful textures and low poly everything at first soon becomes normal as you acclimate to it. Not to mention the minimalist music that can get extremely ear-grating after a while, but also hypnotic in a sense. There are some soothing, more mellow pieces in the game's soundtrack, like the music that plays when you wear the tattered rain hat, but the majority of the songs are... Now that we've gone over the structures of the stages, I'm going to do a sort of lightning round, going through all the stages. Pharmacokinetics. This, being the first stage, might seem deceptively simple at first, but actually displays most of what the best missions in the game have to offer. Multiple ways to take out or reach the target, vent systems that give ways to shortcuts around the mission, secret weapons to find if you have the correct implants, the first Divine Link door, which can only be opened on Divine Link difficulty or normal mode, that leads to one of those secret weapons and an implant. This is also where you can get the death operation that turns your life into death, which can provide some benefits if you know what you're doing. Beautiful first stage. Mwah! Paradise. The first open mission of sorts, where you have a lot of smaller houses that you can approach from different angles. None of these houses reaches the size of the last stage, but many of them provide different sorts of challenges from each other. Maybe there's guys sitting on balconies ready to give you before you can even make it to the door. Plenty of secrets lie within the walls of each house, including the first secret mission painting to Dark World, which I'll talk about later. This stage is where you will most likely run into your first knifer. They run at you with knives, pretty self-explanatory, and flour that sprays acid at you. It's also the first level where you can drive the car from the title screen, which I didn't realize until after I recorded all the footage for this video. Sin Space Engineering. Back to one large area now, with all the standard structure. Multiple paths, although there is really only one path to reach the target, if you aren't Spider-Manning your way up to him, or sniping him from a distance, or using the angular bullets implants that let you kill him from the starting location. What I'm trying to say is that there are many different ways to kill a target, even if it seems like there is only one. It is also notable that this is where you can get the fishing rod, which allows you to start your economic rise through the world of fishing. There is also the forklift that you can drive around if you want. Androgen Assault. An assault on a police cult organization that is the most dangerous mission so far, with plenty of narrow passageways and rooms chock full of enemies ready to mow you down instantly. Special shout out to that room in the middle of the mission that has at least 15 guards in there just chilling. I'm also seeing a trend here, where a lot of the missions have ways to infiltrate through sewage pipes. Like, it happens a lot, where there will be a manhole outside and it just leads straight in, and they are usually some of the best ways to get in undetected. Although I will say that the swimming controls in Cruelty Squad are not the best, to put it mildly. The first encounter with a psycho is here, and fuck the psychos. Easily the second worst enemy in the game, with the first being something that we'll talk about very soon. Mall Madness. This level has a very, smoky texture to it. You know what I mean, right? You know what I mean. First time you run into the necromechs, the big units I mentioned before, you can get the security system's anti-armor device, which is the rocket launcher that wrecks shit up. You proceed from one of the domes to the next, most likely using the vents. Due to those aforementioned necromechs, you can even go above them all and take out enemies from the top vantage point. And there's also a cameo from Elon Musk. Apartment Atrocity has a unique premise compared to the other missions in that you're the one with the hit on them. Apparently it's because someone, quote, fat-fingered the social security number of the target, and yours was the social security number. It doesn't really make sense because when you talk to the target for this mission, who is your landlord, he says that he called the police on you because you haven't paid your rent, so who knows and who really cares. It's an all-out police assault on your home turf, and you have to fight your way through hordes of enemies to make it out alive. Or you can just peek out a window at the end of the hallway and leave out the back alley undetected. Seaside Shock. This one takes place on a boat. There are a lot of different rooms to check for your target. Don't worry, you can just shoot out the windows of the room to take them out. You can also take out one of the targets by shooting the pool out from under them. This is where you also access the next secret mission, Alpine Hospitality. Honestly, one of the more forgettable missions in the game. Bog Business, definitely in my mind, is the worst mission in the game. It's the most straightforward mission and it suffers because of it. If you look at a map, there are really only two ways to go, left or right. Not only is the majority of the mission covered in toxic water that inflicts toxic crisis that drains your health, but the absurd amount of the worst enemies in the game, flesh rats, and yes, they are called flesh rats. They're small, they blend into the ground, they're hard to shoot, and worst of all, they inflict toxic crisis. They've shown up in other missions before this, but this is when they become a real issue. You can also find the painting for Miner's Miracle here, which has some of the same issues. Casino Catastrophe. I killed the target here on accident the first time through. I was just exploring and I didn't even know I killed him at first. There are two paths and one is very clearly more dangerous than the other. The most notable thing about this stage is that you can fish for the rare Wheel of Fortune that is worth $1 million, perfect for purchasing any implants you need as well as becoming a homeowner. You can also gamble. Idiot Party. Kinda sad that they dropped the title alliteration. You gotta take out a priest by making your way down. This one's pretty interesting in that you go around in a big circle, trying to find the stairs to the lower levels. It gives you plenty of chances to take out enemies ahead of time. Thankfully, there's an elevator to take you up, so you don't have to make the trek all the way back to the top. You can jump off that elevator to reach this divine link door, which lets you access the final secret level painting. To Neuron Activator. Office. I love to see how fast I can use the grip index to swing around the outside of the central building and take them out all spy-like. It's kind of the inverse of the last mission, just much shorter. The Bolt ACR resides in this mission is probably one of the most overpowered weapons in the entire game. The Funk Grunters sit on the top of the main statue and are a great upgrade to the Gunk Boosters, allowing for a triple jump. It's a great penultimate mission. The Archon Grid. The final mission, where you push blocks. It might be the game's ultimate form of satire when it comes to video games. Honestly, this is probably my second least favorite level. It's just so long-winded, where if you die, you have to go through all the boring block pushing again, and again, and again. But with all that, we have finally reached the first of 3 endings, where you walk along an endless field and get told by some omnipotent force about how you've come to peace with the world and have learned absolutely nothing, and you will forever be looked down upon by a sun filled with malice. So yeah, pretty positive ending if I say so myself. But for the second ending, we need to go over the secret missions. But before that, let's talk about some of the secret implants you can get hidden in the stages. Because, oh man, it's clear that the game wants you to break it with some of these. They're practically begging for you to. There is a lot, so I'll just narrow it down to the few that I think are the most game-breaking. The Abominator, that lets you switch gravity. All throughout the game you can pick up pills that have a variety of effects, most of them not good. Clearly these levels were not designed to be traversed upside down, but with the Abominator, that can become a complete non-issue. The Bounce Suit, that lets you fall from a long distance and bounce right back up. The Funk Grunters, that lets you triple jump, but it's also good for breaking your fall. And the Biojet, that just lets you fly. As I said, there are plenty of others that I could bring up, but I want you to be surprised. On to the secret missions. Dark World sounds just like the title suggests. It's a town, and it's dark. You'll have to either use the flashlight or the Nightmare Vision goggles for $10, which is a steal, but you'll have to deal with the camera looking like this. You can get the normal night vision goggles in this stage, but they're at the end, so really what's the point of grabbing them when you're pretty much done? So needless to say, it's pretty box standard, except for its notable gimmick. Alpine Hospitality takes place in a ski resort. It has the same sort of game plan that you'd had in Office by swinging around the resort, shooting out windows and taking out the targets. You can also get the RPO-80 sanitization system flamethrower, which isn't very good, but who doesn't like a flamethrower? I didn't think so. Miner's Miracle has the same issues that Bog Business does. Tons of flesh rats and swamp cultists. The meat labyrinth at the end is one of the most confusing sections in the game, but you can get the flower chute, which lets you float around and protects you from fall damage. There are multiple routes, but it always leads to this damn maze, and it just sucks. Neuron Activator, which will cause you to shoot yourself as soon as the beat drops, takes place in a nightclub. The enemies here are rocking the Parasonic MP1 Nailer, which is one of the most dangerous weapons in the game. I was able to find a pretty consistent route through this stage, to the point where I was able to get an A on my first run. The only time that happened. House. No, that's what it's called. You have to pay $1 million just to experience this stage, so it better live up to the hype. All the enemies here are dressed as normal civilians, so it's important to pay extreme attention, as most of them have AMGs, so they can shoot you from miles away. You also meet the 3 Trigons here, that I think are the reason that the world is the way it is, as we are told by the 3 targets. The first Trigon was not happy with the state of the world, so it went beyond the boundary of the universe and introduced the germ onto a desecrated world, creating life in humans. This Trigon had complete control over the way life was created. The second Trigon introduced decay, creating death and chaos onto the newly created life in the world to try and limit people's lives. This chaos caused an excess of energy due to the death going on, and the Trigon thrived on that death. The third Trigon was created from that death, and saw this excess of power and wanted to use it to create something great, but something cannot be great if it doesn't have value. So it too ripped the boundary of the universe and created an overwhelming amount of transactional power. This power was then pulled into things, causing them to gain souls. The rip was soon repaired, but it was already too late as the world took its transactional form, which caused a world of conflict. Damn, did not expect it to get this deep. Just remember that this story started out with somebody buying too many Chunko Pops. I haven't really talked about the story up to this point, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter a whole bunch. It's not like the protagonist is trying to upheave the status quo and bring a new world order or something, right? To go over the second ending, we need to finish our secret mission tour. This one actually isn't even a secret stage, but a secret within a stage that is already unlocked from the start. Cruelty Squad headquarters. While this might be a tutorial, it hides the second ending behind this door. How do you get by this door? You need to be on the hardest difficulty, and how do you achieve that? You need to find the Hope Eradicated orb that is behind this wall by either wearing the Holy Scope, which you can get from Archon Grid, or you can set your resolution to 640 by 480 to make the wall disappear. Thankfully the game hints at this through this NPC's dialogue. Then you have to kill the tankiest guard in the game with 20,000 health, but you can get the CKZ transactional rifle, whose damage is based on how much money you have in the holdings in the stock market. That means if you have over $1 million, you can pretty much one-shot everything. Now you can get the second ending, where you can talk to the life door. It basically tells you about how you have risen up above your peers, and that you have boundless potential, because you played into the world you live in. Then, you're told how to achieve that, by being a businessman with a 10-year plan and a CEO mindset, and that's it. There is one last mission and ending to find. Since all the missions have been completed, it unlocks the final level, Trauma Loop. Now this mission's got it all. Flesh rats, armored flesh rats, giant flesh rats, flesh pigs which are fucking terrifying, armored flesh pigs which are also fucking terrifying, giant toxic water pits, armored zombies, skeletons armed with nailers and rocket launchers, and necromechs for good measure. Not to mention the fact that you can't even use your implants due to this asshole, Limit Chancellor. It's one of the most confusing levels to navigate, as there are multiple paths to the bottom, where you have to find the Cradle of Life, which will show you the final ending. You, being a person with copious amounts of money, lose all your inhibitions in a universe based around transactions. Due to this, you are able to see the world for how it truly is, transcend to a godlike status. You investigate all the layers of the universe and see that the world is in an endless state of trying to kill itself by hiring assassins and wet work operations to snuff out CEOs. No matter how much it tries, however, the transactional power that was created is too strong as new companies and CEOs pop up ad infinitum. It is impossible, and you take pity on it by finishing the job and leaving nothing in its wake. Then it finishes with a quote by French philosopher Georges Bataille. Or at least, that's how I read the ending. And that's it. That's Cruelty Squad. One of the most wholly unique experiences I have ever had. Art can take a lot of different forms, and this is one of the most LSD-ridden, sewage-infested art there is out there. It's clear that consumer soft products put a lot of effort into making this game look like shit, and if you're one of those people that judges a book by its cover, then I wouldn't be surprised if you bounced off of it immediately, though I hope that you will dive into it just as I have. Alright, having spent the amount of time that this video lasts, oh my god, it's almost 26 minutes long, your mind should now have completely converted to the corporate mindset. If it has, then you're free to go. Make sure to like and subscribe on the way out. But if it hasn't, I'd suggest you close your eyes and count to 5. Alright, got your eyes closed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.